Hi, welcome back. Today we are going to make buffalo chicken stuffed peppers. As always, let's get our ingredients out. Today we are going to need 4 bell peppers. You can do any color that you like. I like to do mine with the red bell peppers. I just feel like it goes really well with the buffalo sauce, but feel free to play around with that. So 4 bell peppers. Next, you will need about 4 to 5 cups of chicken. Today, I want to walk you through how I like to cook my chicken. I find that chicken and meat in general can be really intimidating to cook. So I just figured I could use this opportunity to walk you through that. Otherwise, I would use shredded chicken, either from a rotisserie or pre-shredded chicken. If you saw my enchilada casserole recipe, you'll see how I took the chicken off of the rotisserie. So for this one, let's go through how to cook it. Next, you will need some mayonnaise and some Greek yogurt, about a half a cup of each. Some folks like to make this entirely with mayonnaise and some like to make it with Greek yogurt. I've experimented with both and I feel like having half and half is the perfect combination. Of course, you're going to need some buffalo sauce, and my favorite, ranch dressing. For seasonings today, I am going to use some salt and pepper, garlic powder, and onion powder. These are 2 staple seasonings to have in any kitchen. Having them nearby could really help add flavor to some last-minute dishes. I'm also gonna have my dried chives. If you saw my egg in a hole video, you will have seen that I recommend getting dried chives. I'm also gonna add about 1 cup of dried grains. So whether that's rice, quinoa, couscous. What I had on hand was some Italian farro. So I'm gonna have about 1 cup of that and cook according to directions. This will help to make your meal more balanced and more filling. So pick the grain of your choice. You may also want to put some shredded cheese on top of your stuffed peppers. Typically, I would use mozzarella cheese for this recipe, but I have a lot of queso quesadilla cheese left over, so I'm gonna put that on top. For cooking equipment today, we are going to need 2 different cutting boards. If you got the pre-shredded chicken, you will just need 1 of the cutting boards for the bell peppers. If you are preparing your chicken with me today, or even shredding your chicken, I recommend having 2 separate cutting boards. So that way, 1 can be for the bell pepper and the other for the chicken. It just prevents any cross-contamination. I actually got a 3-pack of these wooden cutting boards, and so I have a designated one that I use for meat, and then another one that I use for produce, and then a smaller one just for smaller things. Then you're also going to need 2 separate knives. I have a smaller paring knife for my bell peppers and a larger knife for cutting my chicken. We are going to cut into our chicken raw because I got whole chicken breasts. We are going to butterfly them today. You could also buy thinly sliced chicken breasts. So chicken breasts that have already been sliced for you. I just wanted to show you how I do mine here. If you're going to be following along today and making the chicken, you're also going to want to get a large frying pan to cook the chicken in, a mixing bowl, and a stirring spoon or spatula. I also recommend having some aluminum foil nearby. We're actually going to cover our baking pan with aluminum foil for the first part of baking. If you are making your own grain based on the package, so instead of microwaving it or cooking it from frozen, unless it calls for this, you're also going to want to have a nice sized pot with a lid. And lastly, a baking dish. So this is where we are going to put our stuffed bell peppers and then bake them in the oven. Instead of preheating our oven first, I'm actually gonna have us prepare the chicken, because once the chicken is cooked, we're gonna want to give it some time to cool down before we mix it with our other ingredients. Whichever chicken you're using, once you're done preparing it, we'll preheat the oven. I have 4 large chicken breasts. Honestly, it's probably more than what you need. It's just what my grocery store had. So if you had 3 to 4, I think that's probably fine. When handling raw meat, something I like to do, if you haven't already noticed, is push all of my ingredients away. Just don't want to get any bacteria or anything on ingredients I'm going to be using. I have also removed any jewelry from my wrists and fingers. Just makes it easier to not have to worry about cleaning that after. Okay, I have my chicken here. I'm gonna start by cutting away some of the outer trimmings, and then we're gonna start at the thickest part of the meat to begin our cuts. Make sure that you have a sharp knife for this. It makes cutting the chicken a lot easier. If you find that your knives dull very quickly, you can always get a knife sharpener. They extend the life of your knife. Okay, now if you're comfortable, this is how we are going to do it. I'm gonna take my hand over top of the meat and I'm gonna tilt my knife down just a little bit. That way it is facing the direction of the cutting board. And then I'm just gonna wiggle my way through like this. Because the knife is tilted down, I'm not worried about it getting my hand. My hand just really holds it in place. And then you have 2 pieces of chicken breast. So that's one. So again, cut away some of the trimmings of our meat. And then we're gonna start at the thickest part of our meat. We're gonna put our hand down, tilt your knife down towards the cutting board, and then just cut through. You have 2 pieces. Now do that with the rest of your chicken breasts. Keep in mind that I have been doing this for many, many years. So if it doesn't go super well on your first time, that is totally fine and normal. It took me a while. One of my sides would end up being too thin, the other too thick. Another hack that I like to do, especially if I'm making chicken cutlets, is putting parchment paper over top of my chicken and then using a meat pounder to just flatten them all to a similar thickness. For this, we won't have to do that, but because they're thinner slices now, they're going to be much easier to cook all the way through without overcooking the chicken. Now I'm going to use the cutting board, the package that it came into. Sometimes I'll use a separate plate to lay them all flat and season the chicken a little bit. Before you touch those seasonings, let's wash our hands. All right, I have my garlic powder, just a little bit on one side. Do that with all of my chicken. Then I'm going to take my onion powder and do the same. Just a little bit. You don't have to measure it here. And if you don't like the flavor of onion and garlic, or maybe you want to add some more to it, you could also do paprika and cumin and really any kind of seasoning that you want that you feel like would go really well with buffalo sauce. I'm here for it. Now I'm just going to do some salt and pepper. Now we're going to make our way over to the stove to cook them. All right, let's turn our burner to medium heat. Let that heat up. I'm also gonna bring my chicken nearby, as well as my seasonings. Since we only seasoned one side of the chicken, when I flip it over to put it onto the pan, I'm gonna season the other side. Now that my pan is heating up, we are going to put some oil on top. I will grab a fork so that way I can easily place the chicken onto our pan. You should hear a nice little sizzle. Chicken tends to shrink a little bit as it cooks, so you can try to fit as much as you can on there without having to overlap them. You want them to all be in a nice single layer. While that side is cooking, I will season my other side. You should start to see the outside edges of your chicken starting to turn white. Once you notice a decent outline of cooked chicken on this side, we're gonna flip them. Okay, now that my chicken breasts have a nice little white outline all the way around, I'm going to flip them. During the cooking process, if you don't move the chicken around too much or at all, you'll get a nice brown crust. Now we'll leave it in there for a few more minutes. Something I like to do to make sure that the chicken is cooked all the way through is take one of my thickest pieces and just cut a little line down the middle. I don't know if you can see this here, but it's still a little pink on the inside, just barely. So I'll give it another minute or two. Once those are done, You'll want to put it on a clean plate. Okay, great. Now we're going to repeat this with the rest of the chicken. Okay, I have my cooked chicken here. I'm just gonna put it aside and wait for it to cool off. While we are at the stove, I'm also gonna prepare my grain. And if you wanna make this a little bit easier, I would recommend getting something like instant rice or a microwavable grain, a frozen grain, for when you're crunched on time. Now's a good time to preheat our oven to 400 degrees. Another helpful step while we're waiting for our chicken to cool is to go ahead and clean off our cutting board and our knife that we use to cut the raw chicken, so that way we can use it to dice up our cooked chicken. Now we can start to prepare our peppers. I like to cut mine all the way down the middle, so that way you have two sides that you can fill and stuff, and I feel like that makes it a little bit easier. How I do this is I just literally cut right down the middle. If the stem is giving you a hard time, you could also do it like this. Maybe it's easier to start at the bottom. That was actually much easier. To make some room for our stuffing, we are going to need a large spoon. And I kind of just start at the bottom here and I dig my spoon in and just kind of carve all the way around. This is actually the part where I will cut out the stem like this. And usually you can just kind of pop it out like that. And then I'll just clear it out a little bit more. So you have a nice little cup, and we'll do that with all the rest. Sometimes I'll even tap my pepper up against my sink to get rid of some of the seeds on the inside. And just like anything else that we make here, it does not have to be perfect. If your bell pepper comes apart, that's okay. We're gonna put this in a baking dish, so we'll still be able to get some of the stuffing on there. Now I have all of my peppers chopped and cleared out. I will take my baking pan. I always like to spray my baking dishes just to help to prevent any kind of sticking. Also helps with cleanup. I kind of feel like this should be a kitchen staple. In my greased dish, I'm just going to kind of lay out my bell peppers like this, so they are ready for the stuffing. And then I'll put them aside. Now we will get out our cutting board and the knife for our chicken. Remember, we just cleaned those. And once your chicken is cool to the touch, you will want to just slice it one way and then flip it around and cut it the other way. As I cut it, to make room on my cutting board, I'm just gonna start to place it into my mixing bowl. You can kind of cut the chicken to your preference. I'm just doing diced pieces here. I find that shredding chicken once it's been cooked on the stove is a little bit tough. So you're only gonna need about 4 to 5 cups of chicken. And I think I'm getting pretty close to that. I just have 2 pieces of chicken left. So I'm going to just go ahead and cut them and put them into my mixture. And my chicken's ready. Now that our chicken and our grain has cooled down, let's make the mixture for our bell peppers. To our mixing bowl with the chicken in it, we are gonna want to add 1/2 cup of mayonnaise and then a half a cup of plain Greek yogurt, which is about the amount of one of these little individual containers. Then we're gonna do a teaspoon of onion powder and a teaspoon of garlic powder, some salt and pepper, and lastly, a half a cup of buffalo sauce. Before mixing the ingredients, go ahead and add in your grain. It's okay if it's still a little hot, just be careful with handling it. I may add a little bit more buffalo sauce. You're welcome to do the same. All right, now that our mixture is ready, let's set it to the side. Keep your spoon for stuffing the peppers, and then bring your peppers back. Now you're gonna take a heaping spoonful of the mixture, doing the best you can to spread it evenly between them all. I like to put a little bit of something in each one, and then I'll go back in towards the end and top them off. Don't be afraid to really stuff them. Because they're in a baking dish, anything that falls out while you're scooping or during the baking process will all land in the baking dish. This is what they should look like once you're finished. Now we're gonna want to cover it with some aluminum foil. Just like that. Then we're going to bake in the oven for 30 minutes, remove the foil, sprinkle some cheese on top, and then add it back into the oven for another 20 minutes just to get the cheese melted and browned. Don't forget to set those timers. As usual, I always like to take the opportunity while something's cooking to just kind of tidy up a little bit. So I'm gonna take a few minutes to do that. Okay, here's my buffalo chicken stuffed bell peppers. After you've let them cool down for a little bit, let's make our plates. Let's give it a try. It's got such good textures between the crispy cheese on top, the creamy chicken, and then you have the bell pepper. Farro also adds its own unique kind of crunch. So I imagine, depending on the type of grain you use, you'll probably get a little bit of different texture as well. So good. As always, I will do my best to link anything that I used here today in the description below. If you would be interested in learning more about me or why I started this channel, I'll also link my introduction video. Otherwise, thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you next time.